Good evening, I'm Brit Clennett in Hong Kong and welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Carrie Lam promises to set up an inquiry panel to look into bus safety as the death toll of Typo bus crash rises to at least 19. At least one woman killed and 12 others injured after a knife-wielding man attacked people in a Beijing mall. And North Korean media says talks with the South were warm but frank as the US voices scepticism over their improving ties. We begin tonight with the deadly Typo bus crash that killed at least 19 people. 66 people were injured, with 9 of them in critical condition. The chief executive has vowed to set up an inquiry panel to look into the city's bus operations and promised to provide assistance to affected families. The bus was seriously damaged. Bloodstains could be seen on the ground alongside scattered bricks and upturned soil. Relatives of the victims arrived at the scene to mourn over the loss of their loved ones. Police have arrested the part-time driver for dangerous driving causing death. They're also looking into the possibility of manslaughter. The chief executive and officials have acted promptly and visited the victims in hospitals. Carrie Lam vows to set up an independent committee, chaired by a judge, to investigate bus safety.
I am initiating this comprehensive review to be undertaken independently to advise the government on what sort of measures we need to put in place in order to ensure the safety of Hong Kong's franchise bus service.
Lam says families of the dead victims will receive an assistance fund of $300,000. Those injured will get between $150,000 and $250,000. The donations come from various charities, including the Jockey Club and Tung Wah Group. The CE also promised to assign a social worker to 79 affected families to follow up with their cases and provide funeral service assistance. It comes after 2 unions of the Kowloon Motor Bus Company stepped out to point the finger at their employer. They revealed that the company does not provide enough training and simply hires more part-time drivers to solve its manpower shortage.
We used to have training. Now we don't. They just give us a sheet and ask us to follow the guidelines. If it doesn't work for the first time, then try again. Do you think that's sufficient training? I can only say this is a ticking bomb.
Meantime, the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office and Executive Councillor Fanny Law also expressed condolences over the fatal crash. Financial Secretary Paul Chan has promised to provide more resources for medical and elderly care services in this year's government budget. Writing on his blog, Chan promised to use public sources and take a people-orientated approach to build a society with care, justice and diversity. It comes after Carrie Lam last month asked the hospital authority to abolish its policy on salary freezes for newly recruited nurses in their first 2 years of work. Health sector lawmaker Joseph Lee has urged the government to pay nurses to back pay nurses who won't benefit from this. In Beijing, at least one woman was killed and 12 others injured after a knife-wielding assailant attacked people in a mall. Local police say they detained a man following the attack. They've identified him as a 35-year-old surnamed Zhu. He confessed, saying he wanted to express his discontent. Among the injured are 3 men and 10 women, all of whom were sent to the hospital in the Xidan district. Well, Sweden says it will keep pressing the Chinese government to release its citizen Gui Minhai a day after the publisher slammed Stockholm for using him as a chess piece to trouble Beijing. Gui resurfaced yesterday, 3 weeks after he was snatched by mainland authorities from a Beijing-bound train. In a statement, which Amnesty International said was likely staged, the bookseller threatened to give up his Swedish citizenship if authorities continue to cause hassle for Beijing. Beijing says Gui is being held on suspicion of leaking state secrets abroad. To the latest on Taiwan's deadly earthquake next, the death toll has now risen to 17. This as Hualien County announced it had ended its search and rescue operation this morning. Rescuers unearthed the body of a mainland tourist under the rubble of Yunmei Tsuiti building early today. 3 of the victims' family members were also found dead yesterday. 1 remains unaccounted for. Authorities are now using machines to try and dig out the missing body. Meantime, relatives of the family have arrived at a funeral home to help identify the victims. To the latest now from the Winter Olympics, where relations between the host nation and its neighbours in the north continue to take centre stage. North Korea's state-run news agency said talks with President Moon Jae-in were candid and warm, but there was no mention of Kim Jong-un's summit invitation. Kim Jong-un's sister courteously handed Moon a personal invite from the North Korean leader as the pair met for historic talks. Moon said the Koreas should make it happen. It would be the first summit in more than a decade between Korean leaders. But as Adam Reid reports from the Games in Pyeongchang, not everyone appears to be happy about the warming of ties.
The Games go on, but for US Vice President Mike Pence, his 3-day trip to South Korea is over. But before he left, he had some strong words of warning for the North and South that the US administration, China and Japan are all against this seemingly friendly relationship developing now between the North and South after further talks took place, even at a dinner last night. But as he was about to fly out, the US Vice President said there's no daylight between the United States, the Republic of Korea and Japan on the need to continue to isolate North Korea economically and diplomatically until they abandon their nuclear ballistic missile program, even suggesting that more sanctions should be placed upon the North. That's after Kim Jong-un's invitation to the South to visit the North Korean capital, Pyongyang, for supposed peace talks. It's led to cynicism and skepticism by the US and other Asian countries that the North are using this as a tool to shirk the already severe sanctions placed upon them.
Adam Reid braving the cold in Pyeongchang there. Well, staying on the Games, organisers have confirmed there was a cyber attack during Friday's opening ceremony. IOC spokesman Mark Adams said that certain systems were affected, including internet and television services. But he said nothing critical was breached. Organisers have remained tight-lipped over who was behind the attack. Coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Well, global markets suffered one of the most volatile stretches in years this past week. In the week ahead, 2 important readings on US inflation could give investors a better idea of what's in store next. The US Labor Department is set to roll out January CPI figures on Wednesday, followed by PPI numbers on Thursday. If they come in above estimates, there could well be more selling and gyrations for equities. Well, here in Hong Kong, we'll be getting a look at a couple of key earnings reports. Gaming operator Sands China releases its full-year earnings for 2017 on Thursday, just ahead of the Lunar New Year break. Before that, Smartone Telecommunications rolls out its half-yearly earnings results for 2018 on Tuesday. Well, aircraft maintenance is an area undergoing some huge transformations in the aviation industry. It was one of the highlights at Asia's largest aerospace and defence events, which took place in Singapore this weekend. And the Lion City appears to be leading some of the key innovations in this niche. Sandy Huang went to find out why.
Augmented reality meets aerospace technology. This is the future of aircraft maintenance. ST Engineering calls it Smart MRO, short for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Globally, it's a $75 billion industry, which is expected to double in the next decade. And Singapore is at the heart of it.
Our idea is to bring some of these technologies, anything from drones, automated ground vehicles, to data analytics, to 3D printing, to make aerospace maintenance, repair, and overhaul more productive, safer, and producing work at higher quality.
Big-name plane builders are also looking for a share of the market. Boeing this week announced deals worth nearly $1 billion. The goal is to more than triple its servicing units' annual revenue in 5 years. Meanwhile, orders for new planes are quiet this year. Just 4 were sold, compared to 52 at the last air show in 2016. Italian turbopropeller maker ATR backed the only commercial aircraft order, a $100 million deal with Bangkok Airways. Global demand, though, is soaring. Airline Industry Association IATA predicts Asian carriers will be generating $9 billion in profits this year. Big manufacturers are looking to partnerships to cope.
We're definitely seeing restructuring of the industry, and there also is a bright outlook. Both Airbus and Boeing this week said they were looking to potentially raise production of narrow-body aircraft like the A320 and the 737, just because there's so much demand. Boeing said if you're a brand new customer and you've never bought a Boeing before and you want the 737, the first slot they have for you is 2023.
Still, there are challenges ahead. Rising fuel prices, airport surcharges, and higher labor costs could all spell trouble for airlines, and by extension, manufacturers. While fares are steady at the moment, price hikes are also on the horizon.
Drug maker Purdue Pharma says it plans to cut its sales force in half and stop promoting opioids to physicians. It comes following widespread criticism over how drug makers market addictive painkillers. Purdue Pharma, which manufactures the painkiller OxyContin, said its sales reps won't visit doctors' offices to discuss its opioids products anymore. Those with opioid-related questions will be directed to its medical affairs department. Authorities in the US say opioids were involved in 42,000 overdose deaths in 2016. Well, competition in the courier industry could be hotting up following reports saying Amazon plans to launch its own delivery service. It could be a good thing for consumers, particularly if Amazon and its rivals compete on cost. Fred Kadiyama reports.
Third-party sellers may soon be able to have Amazon deliver their packages. The Wall Street Journal reports the online retailer plans to launch a delivery service for businesses that would put them head-to-head with UPS and FedEx. That service would pick up packages sold by its third-party merchants at warehouses and businesses and deliver them. Manhattan Venture Partners research head Santosh Rao.
They were moving in this direction, so this looks like they want to expand that further. In 2013, they found that their shipments were delayed because there wasn't enough capacity. So I think that was kind of started the whole process. They said, let's control the whole end-to-end last-mile delivery. I think that's what this is all about.
The Journal says Amazon will roll out that service in Los Angeles in the coming weeks, then expand it to more cities. What's more, Amazon could expand beyond third-party sellers and open the service to other businesses, charging lower prices than FedEx and UPS. Amazon spokesperson Kristen Kish said, "We're always innovating and experimenting on behalf of customers and the businesses that sell and grow on Amazon to create faster, lower-cost delivery choices." Shares of UPS and FedEx dropped at the market open Friday. FedEx Senior Vice President Patrick Fitzgerald said in a statement, "The headline in today's Wall Street Journal demonstrates a lack of basic understanding of the full scale of the global transportation industry." UPS didn't respond to our immediate request for comment. Amazon has been creating its own delivery network, leasing aircraft and expanding into ocean freight.
All right, it's time for break.